What is going on, everybody? This is Josh, back again with another video on Tech and Ish. Today's video is going to be about 911. Latest episode just came out, and 911 continues to not disappoint. This episode was great. In the beginning, I already knew something bad was going to happen, so let's just talk about it. So, in the beginning of the episode, they end up going to a figure skating ring, and right away, I already knew something bad was going to happen. Automatically, I got flashbacks from Blades of Glory, when Will Ferrell and John Heder were trying to do that move that like killed a person, you know, like they do a flip and it cut a person's head off. So I didn't think something like that bad was going to happen in this one, but I knew it was going to be somewhat graphic, and it was. Now you end up seeing Hansel and Gretel. They're basically arguing with each other, and you know, they're basically getting mad at each other because, you know, they're having an argument that Hansel broke up with Gretel, or maybe it's the other way around. I can never tell who's who. But the figure skating in this thing is actually pretty cool. You know, you end up seeing a guy doing like a twirl or spin, whatever it's called, and he's actually spinning really, really fast. So it actually looks really cool. But since he's doing that, one of his, I don't know what they're called, sparkles, whatever, one of those little pieces come out, and it's on the floor, and it's a little small, like sparkle piece. It's like less than the size of a penny. And right when I saw that, I knew something bad was going to happen. But you know, my mind was thinking something else, something a little bit more gruesome, not as gruesome as Blades of Glory, but a little bit more. So when I saw that, you know, it fell on the floor. They go back on the skating ring, and one of the people in the background, they end up tripping. He falls, and then someone ends up slicing his fingers off. All four of his fingers come off, and then Hansel ends up putting his blade through Gretel, or maybe it's the other way around. You know what I'm talking about. So it ends up going through him. They call 911, and you know, of course, they're gonna fix that guy's fingers up. But Hansel or Gretel or whatever, they end up having the skates in the guy's chest. And right there, they're both arguing because of the whole breakup thing. Turns out that he ended up dumping her because she was going to go to Disney on Ice, but she was going to deny it because she wanted to stay with him, and he didn't want her to do that. So he basically just dumped her. He finally opens up on why he dumped her, and they find the fingers. So it turns out Eddie is still doing his whole fighting thing. He's still doing like this whole Fight Club thing. And looks like he's actually getting paid for it, and he's getting paid pretty well. Oh, also, let me also tell you about Bobby. Used to actually be one of those, you know, ice skater people. You know, he used to actually do that, and it's funny how he actually went back to it. You know, it was a long time ago. He had the Bowie haircut. They end up showing a clip about it, and then Buck ends up bringing a whole poster about it. So, you know, keep in tune for that. So Eddie, like I said, he's still fighting. He's looks like he's actually getting money from it, and he looks like he's getting pretty good money because he ends up getting this Denali truck. Truck looks nice, but it's a GMC, and I don't really like GMC. I'm a Ford kind of person. He ends up getting the truck. You know, they end up, him and Buck end up talking about it, you know, telling him, are you going to be able to afford that? Buck doesn't know he's actually getting the money from the Fight Club. But I kind of feel like it's going to blow up in Eddie's face, but I'm going to keep in tune for that. Now, there is this one scene that I saw about Hen, and I didn't really pay no mind to it. I thought she may have made a mistake, but then throughout the episode, I started thinking Hen is like one of the most people who doesn't get distracted, you know, is always on point. But she ends up making a very little mistake. She ends up passing Chim an instrument, or whatever that piece is called. She ends up passing it to him, and it turns out that's not what he needed. So it looks like she's a little bit distracted, and you start figuring out why she's getting distracted. She's getting phone calls. She's just not her regular self. And you end up finding out why. So let's just keep on watching it. So Athena ends up cooking for the whole fire department. It looks like she's on leave because she was investigating, you know, her case about her ex-fiance. She was investigating it, and I guess she got in too far with it. So, you know, they put her to the side for now. So she goes to the fire department, and she's just cooking food for them. And then that's when Hen receives a phone call, and you can tell something's wrong, but you don't know exactly what's going on. Now, this is actually one thing I've actually wanted to, like, I want to know how it's actually done if something happens. Now, this guy, he's driving, I'm assuming it's a Tesla because it's on like autopilot kind of thing. He's driving a Tesla, and he's talking to his wife. He's letting her know that he doesn't even need to take control of the car. He can do whatever he wants. He can fall asleep and the car will get him to his destination. Now, you see a lot of stories of this online that, you know, the Tesla, when it does this, it's not perfect. You know, it does cause accidents. So this guy, he starts having, it looks like he was starting to get a heart attack. He started talking about his arm was hurting. He couldn't breathe. And right there, I thought he was going to pass out. I thought he was going to pass out. And the Tesla was just going to continue driving and driving until he got to his destination. So most likely he was going to die. But he ended up rerouting to the nearest hospital. They took him, the Tesla took him there. I don't even know if it's a Tesla. So I was just going to call it a Tesla. The Tesla took him there, and he actually ran it through the emergency room or whatever office it was. He ran through it. He hurt somebody in there. Nothing was really that much of a big deal. They're at the hospital. So, you know, it was kind of funny because Chim and Hen, they're loading them up on the stretcher, but they don't need to do nothing else because they're at the hospital. So it's like they're kind of lost because they don't know what to do. So here's where you find out what's going on with Hen. Her wife is depressed because she had 6 of her embryos, you know, not work or died. I don't know what's the proper terminology for it, but, you know, 6 of them didn't make it. And Hen kind of like, she grieved her own kind of way, and then she moved on with it because she knows she has a kid already that she needs to make sure that she stays strong for. She needs to make sure that stuff is going properly. But her wife is not feeling that way. She's continuing to grieve about it, and Hen is basically trying to get her out of bed. But of course, since they're her embryos, you know, she's feeling some type of way about it. So this is the reason why Hen has been distracted this whole time, because she has to deal with her wife's depression. On top of that, she has to deal with her son, and then she has to also deal with work. So it's a lot of stuff that Hen has to deal with, and this ends up biting her in the ass at the end. Now here's kind of another scene where this is where it bites Eddie in the ass. Eddie ends up fighting this guy, and, you know, he's knocking him around. And this last scene, he ends up kicking the guy in the face, and it looked pretty nasty. He kicked him in the face, the guy falls down, he ends up winning, but then the guy ends up not breathing, he's choking. Of course, since Eddie is a fireman, he already knows what he needs to do, but he doesn't have the proper tools. So he tells the fighting guy to call 911. Since it's a fighting club, you know, he doesn't want to call 911. Turns out, Eddie puts his hand inside the guy's mouth, or his fingers inside the guy's mouth. He takes whatever is out of there, and it turns out it's cartilage from his broken nose. And this shit looks nasty, like it looked like a potato chip. But just thinking about that it's cartilage from the nose, that made it look nasty. So they call 911, and they end up finding out that it's Ronda Rousey's department. So Ronda used to work in Bobby's department, but I guess since Buck came back, now Ronda Rousey is in her own department. And I guess that's why you don't really see her that much. So I think she's going to be a reoccurring actress in this, but not that much anymore. So she ends up talking to Eddie. She knows that the whole thing started because Eddie was in this whole fight club. She knows that Eddie was the one that called her. And it's like Eddie only uses her when he needs her, and she feels some type of way about that. So it looks like she has to report it, or her captain has to report it to Eddie's boss, which is Bobby. It looks like Eddie's going to be panicking about this. So Eddie ends up seeing Ronda Rousey at his firehouse, and she's talking to the captain. And then Eddie's basically thinking that she betrayed him, and he was like, you know, we're supposed to be friends. But yet, he doesn't know really anything about her. He only calls her when he needs her, and she lets him know that. Turns out the only reason why she went to his firehouse was to set the record straight, to let him know, or to let Bobby know, we're not friends, everything that happened with Eddie, so that way they can actually take it easy on him. Now here's like another 911 scene. The guy is like, the boss is basically telling his workers that they need to work a lot more better because the robots are doing better than they are. So he's like, you know what, no more pee breaks or any breaks whatsoever. I need you to get this work done. Now one of the workers there, he ends up having to use the bathroom really bad. He can't hold it anymore. You see him just jumping around because he's trying to hurry up and get his stuff done so he can use the bathroom. Now, of course, that's against the law, but it ends up biting them in the ass, because the guy ends up peeing on the robot, and that robot ends up malfunctioning, and that's the name of the episode. The robot ends up malfunctioning, and he just drops everything down, like all the boxes, because they're like in a warehouse thing, so there's a ton of boxes. He drops all the boxes on the floor, so they're stacked up, and they all basically land on that one guy who needed to take the pee break. So he kind of thought that the robot was attacking him purposely because of what happened. Now the guy looks like he's pretty much banged up, and Bobby knows what happened, and he's basically letting the boss know that he's gonna call OSHA. I think that's what they're called. So he's gonna call OSHA to let him know that what all happened here and why it actually happened. So I'm pretty sure this guy, if it was real life, this guy was gonna sue the company and get millions. So now you remember how I told you Hen was a little bit distracted, and in this scene, I don't think it was her being distracted from what's going on in her home life or her personal life. I think it was just not looking at the road. If you look at it, she, turns on the lights, turns on the sirens, but it looks like she's looking back, through the rearview mirrors. It looks like she's looking back, and she tells, Chim to tell that guy to hold on because we're almost at the hospital. Right when that happens, a car comes into the way, and she ends up hitting that car. Now, what I liked about this is the fact that they actually told the story of the person who was in that car that Hen hit. It was this girl who was going to perform because she plays the cello. Hopefully I got that right. It's that big ass violin that, they put in between their legs, and then they do this with it. I don't know really nothing about instruments. I only know what's a violin and a piano and a guitar and drums. That's basically about it. Now, the girl is performing, and she plays this music that I've heard so much, and I always like hearing this certain song. So I'm hoping you guys can actually hear it. Now, it turns out that she's the youngest person who's actually going to be able to perform in front of a lot of people. So she gets all her stuff, she starts driving in a car, and it looks like she's taking every precaution. Now, she does take a phone call from her mom, but she quickly answers it because it's on like a little dock thing. She quickly answers it, and she starts talking to her mom. And right when she hangs up, that's when Hen ends up hitting her. Now, when Hen hit her, the scene that they made it looks really good. Like, it hits her, and then right away it goes into slow motion. Like, you see the coffee going up in the air, glass is just going everywhere. You see her like kind of like slowly getting hit, falling down. She stays in the car, of course, but you see all that being done in slow motion. And Hen finally realized what she's done. She sees the girl in the car that she's just laid over. She runs straight to the car, tries to help the girl out. And then Chim ends up calling for backup. And it turns out that, Bobby isn't too far from there. So he ends up getting his team. He ends up running over there as fast as he can. Well, of course, they're having to drive. They're a couple miles away, but they're not that far. He ends up getting in the fire truck, and they end up just, going there as fast as they can. Hen is there trying to make sure that she can actually help that girl, because she looks like she's not gonna make it. Now, of course, since this whole accident happened because of Hen, she basically can't help at all, because it's just gonna make things a lot worse. Bobby gets there with his team. They open the door. They're able to get that girl out, and they're performing CPR. Now, the emotion that was going through Hen was heartbreaking. Like, she played that role amazing. Her acting is great in this scene. She starts crying. Athena ends up coming by. She tells Athena a bunch of stuff like it's her fault, as in it's Hen's fault. And people are recording this. Athena sees that, tells her, hey, you need to stop talking. Just leave it alone. She ends up trying to push her away from those cameras. In the same time, Hen is looking at that girl. They're trying to perform CPR on her. They're trying to bring her back to life or get her heart going. At the same time, Athena is still talking to Hen. Now, Hen ends up seeing that the girl did not make it, and she just breaks down. She starts crying. Now, I saw this in the trailer, but I thought it was going to be over somebody she lost that was close to her. But at the fact that it was somebody that she didn't know, and she was crying this much, there was a lot of emotion happening here. And I thought this scene was great. It ended basically on a little cliffhanger, because you don't know what's gonna happen next, but it was a great episode. You should definitely check this one out. Now, my thoughts on the next episode are going to be, they're going to maybe find video camera. Of course, they're going to play the cell phone video from the people who were walking around. And I think they're going to try to put the blame on Hen. But in reality, I don't think she's at fault. I mean, she had the sirens going. She ended up putting, I guess she like pushed the button that made the sirens maybe a little bit louder. I don't know. But I don't think it's her fault. And of course, that girl was driving. I don't think it's her fault. I don't know. I just don't think it's Hen's fault. I would if I had to choose, I would say it's that girl's fault. But I don't know. So we'll just see what happens on the next episode. So I'm definitely going to review the next episode. Keep in tune to this channel. I'll let you know what I think about it. Comment, like, subscribe. Let me know if there's something you want me to check out. And I guess I'll just see you guys on the next one. Peace.